Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Happy Halloween! I am so excited to share our 1 year anniversary show with you. I cannot believe my little show is already 1 year old, and I have such a wonderful, exciting guest who is kind of a secret if you look on the one side of the screen, but if you look at the actual screen with his name, it's not really a secret. I'm so excited to have Tony Lauro on with me today for this talk. Hi, Tony!
Hey, good to
Oh,
see you. How are you?
I'm doing swell now. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Very
Happy
excited to be
Halloween.
here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. I had to dress up, of course, for our 1 year anniversary, and what better thing to show up as our infection monkey? That's right, our adversary emulation platform, free and open source. Go download it. Woo! All right, we're off to the races. Hi, Tony. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm sorry. This is like super high energy. I can't believe that it's already 1 year old, and I'm so happy to have you on here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Would you mind introducing yourself and to these lovely people and why they should listen to you? Because they really should.
Sure. Well, I'm Tony Lauro, Director of Security Strategy and Technology at Akamai. My role at Akamai is working with our customer base and understanding kind of emerging threats and how we build products and solutions to help meet those needs. So a lot of
Ooh.
fun stuff, a lot of in the field conversations and feedback from our customers, which is great.
Yeah, it's definitely it's always good to have that direct that direct like line of communication with the customers because that's what is happening in the real world, right? Like it's good to have
Yeah.
that lifeline.
Yeah. Instead of
All
like
right.
the theoretical, like, we're doing this because we think it's great, but it has to actually make a difference, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's literally one of the founding principles of the show was making a difference, being practical and all that. So, oh, what a wonderful person to have on with me. Thank you so much. And those of you who have seen the show before, you kind of know how this goes. I'm going to give some quick news updates, and then Tony and I are going to have our chit chat. So, really quick, I wanted to talk about some things that happened in October here at Akamai. Of course, let's start with cups. Actually, Tony, let's start with cups. So, if unless you were living under a rock, you knew the gigantic Unix printing system vulnerability that came out last in September, and then our Akamai CERT actually did some further research into it and found out that the same vulnerability actually was a really, really, really big, super easy place to run DDoS, and they could run every affected node with one single packet was what they've ended up finding. It's pretty wild. So, Tony, I know you talk a lot about DDoS in your life. Do you want to give any thoughts on how scary this is? Your thoughts on the whole
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, the whole idea of like security through obscurity, this,
Yes.
if this doesn't, debunk that, attackers will find absolutely anything they can to launch an attack, to leverage for their own use, right? So
Yep.
I remember back in the day, like even like when you log into an FTP service and you'd get like a message of the day, like a banner that says, this is a protected computer system. And the bigger that text was, attackers would use that for an amplification attack, back to a target system. I mean, how crazy is that?
It's just wild. I mean, oh man. And to think, like, I thought I was cool, like sending a bunch of messages on Yahoo Messenger. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, it's so wild. Yeah. The what's a particularly concerning trend that we've seen, especially here in research, is that these old vulnerabilities that some of them didn't even have CVEs assigned, right? They are just old vulnerabilities that were kind of overlooked. They weren't really a priority. And now, due to new landscape things like APIs, they're like totally new threat vectors. And the cups is a really good example of that, of course. I mean, the
Yeah.
Unix printing system is woof. And speaking of the CERT, this is probably the biggest story that I want to talk about today. I'm really excited to get your like practical insight on all of this too. Was of course the anonymous Sudan takedown. So our CERT was involved in
Huge.
the big pipes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, this is so cool. This is like really making a difference stuff. This is why we get into security, right? This is why we do it. The our security intelligence and response team, CERT, was involved in a Big Pipes working group, which was responsible for helping the DOJ take down the anonymous Sudan, right, and actually seizing their infrastructure. And this is the part that I want to like point on, because attackers, as we know, they have very, very robust attack infrastructures. They have a lot of failover. They have like these are actual criminal organizations, right? So this level of taking over is unprecedented. Would you agree with that, Tony?
Absolutely. I mean, Anonymous Sudan has been active for quite some time. When KillNet was making their run at things, Anonymous Sudan was kind of backing them up as a partner, organization, so to speak. But to see this kind of coordinated effort and to actually go not just, get the leaders or whatnot, but look at the infrastructure, where they're leveraging their tools from. I mean, that's massive. And that must have taken a huge amount of coordination to make that takedown happen.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was multiple organizations, and we just happened to be one of them. But it's such a cool thing to see. We don't get a whole lot of good stories in security, right? We get a lot of the other side. Especially when you're dealing with incident response. Incident response, of course, sees the worst of the worst. So it's really cool. Like, great job, team. Great job.
I know. Pat everybody on the back at this point. That was great.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, I think it's a nice positive story, like I said, for once. And we hope that we can see this, moving forward. And again, like pointing back, there's no better time to be paying attention to these things. I touched on APIs. I'd really like to get your point on this, because I know you talk about this a lot. How has the APIs changed the threat landscape as we knew it today?
Yeah, well, it's almost like a softball of a question to some degree, right? Because if you think about it, every interaction we have these days, most of them are leveraging APIs, right? APIs, application programming interface. It's a very small request, packet, only pulling back the data that you actually need. So instead of doing like maybe a full page scrape to see what the latest, ticket prices are, you can just query the ticket price API, right? But there's APIs integrated into everything these days. Back in 2016, I did a talk at the Detroit Automotive Cybersecurity Summit, and there was an exploit against the Nissan Leaf at the time, where there was an unlock API where you could remotely unlock your Nissan Leaf. Turns out the only thing you needed to know was the VIN number of the vehicle. So if you know the API endpoint and you walk up and look at a VIN, which is not private, you look at the VIN number of a car, you could technically craft a request and send it and unlock that car remotely. Now that seems like kind of like an esoteric example, right? But these days, APIs are used for absolutely everything. So we've seen APIs used in data scraping, API attacks, basically manipulating, call out. So when you look at your banking app and you say, check account balance, the backend API that answers that call, all it's doing is saying, am I authenticated? So if I manipulate my call out after I press, check account balance, and I put someone else's account number in there, conceivably that backend API could say, oh, are you authenticated? Yes.
Already
if
authenticated.
So, respond. And now you get the response, that's really destined for someone else. So these are the kind of things that are happening, and kind of the broken relationship between how APIs function, how they're built and how they're supposed to function. And then again, what attackers are able to, to find out and what they can do, if you get a little creative with them.
Just a little bit. And
So,
a big
wild,
start to that is knowing where all your APIs are and what they do. That's a good start.
Absolutely. Yeah. Discovering where they are, doing posture assessments against them, and then kind of continuously monitoring what exactly. And continuously monitoring like what they're actually doing day to day. So if something happens that's a little out of bounds, at least you have some kind of idea that something different is occurring than normal, right?
Yes, exactly. Like understanding your baseline, that is absolutely like critical. I think
Yeah,
user analytics, behavior analytics, like this is how we need to look at this, and taking an additional step and make sure that they're actually the human and it's not a bot, right? That's a whole
correct,
other like
correct. Yeah,
level of this. So yeah, it's just staggering nowadays. You things were already bad, and now we have just a totally new landscape, and ways that, as mentioned before, like things that were previously unthought of or didn't think they were going to be an issue. I mean,
yeah.
how many environments are still running like XP? You know?
Sadly, there's probably a lot out there.
Yeah. Yes. So, wow, I can't believe we're already at time. I every time I talk to you, I feel
Great.
like it could be hours. I think
I
before
love
I
chatting with you. I love
you're the
your
best.
creativity, and the presence you bring is just amazing. So thank you. Thanks for
Oh,
having me, Trisha.
oh my gosh, please, of course. Anytime. Is there any other nuggets of wisdom you want to impart upon our audience before I bid us adieu?
Sure. Yeah, I think if Cups has taught us anything, that a 20, 30-year-old service could have a 0-day vulnerability attached to it. Um, you know, review the basics. Make sure that you're doing absolutely everything you can to apply security at a base level across your environment. That includes discovering what's there, applying those basic security measures, and at least try to get the low-hanging fruit out of the way. Obviously, and I'm sure you've done dozens of episodes on low-hanging fruit being attacked. So I think that's probably a really good baseline to get people moving in the right direction.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm all about the basics. They are not overrated, y'all. Oh man. Okay. Wow. So thank you everybody for hanging out with us today. Be sure to sign up for our next episode on the 21st of November, episode 13. Wow, already over a year old. You can, as always, check out our attachments at the bottom of the page and our security intelligence group page at akamai.com. That's the best way to find out what we're doing here in research. And if you want an even quicker way, you can follow us on X, Akamai_research. And most importantly, if you have feedback, questions, comments, concerns, jokes, something you want to hear about on the show, somebody you want to see on the show, please, please, please let us know. Brighttalk@akamai.com. We're always looking for ideas because the content needs to be relevant to you. With that, I bid you all adieu. Happy Halloween. Be safe, be kind, and Cybernara, y'all.